This is the Too Tall Sports Podcast. Thank you for joining me today. My guest is Edgar Varela. He is the Major League hitting coach for the Minnesota Twins, and he's also a Long Beach State guy, so I had to track him down. He coached me for the Pirates, so he was with the Pirates organization for 10 years. I had him for a couple years back in 09 and 10. Great guy. He's definitely earned it, and he's put his time in to be a Major League hitting coach. So very happy for Edgar Varela. Happy to have him on today. So great episode with him. As always, you can follow the show at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. We are on YouTube. If you're watching now, thank you very much. If you'd like to watch the episodes, please subscribe, rate, and review where you can, and hit the little bell notification. That'd be great. Drop a comment on the video wherever you can. Check Too Tall Sports Podcast on YouTube. We're on Pandora. We're on Amazon Music. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. And right now, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go back to the episodes and scroll all the way down and give me a 5-star. That'd be very appreciative. We need those to get more exposure for the show. So the more good ratings we have, the better. Once again, my episode is with Edgar Varela. Enjoy the episode, and I will see you on the other side. Talk. Going crazy. All right, welcome back to another edition of the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My next guest is the hitting coach of the Minnesota Twins. He played his college ball at Long Beach State. That's why I wore the shirt for him today. He was drafted by the White Sox back in 2002, and he was with the Pirates organization as a coach for 10 years and was one of my coaches back in 2009 and 10. He is Edgar Varela. What's up, Edgar? How are you, man?
Good, man. Glad to be here, brother.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you.
Yeah, so thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
For sure. Definitely got a lot to talk to you about. Before we get into your playing and coaching career, I just kind of wanted to briefly ask you about 2020 for you, personally, with your family and professionally, navigating through the pandemic with baseball. How did it all go for you last year?
Well, obviously started on a high. 2020, going into the expectations of a first major league season, going into spring training, getting a chance to meet some big time players that we had on our roster, and just in general, as spring training went along, you get hit with the pandemic and what now, kind of gray area, what was going to happen with the season, just continue to control what we could at that point. Until we got the call to go back. So, and then having a chance to have baseball again was really, really cool to be back in the grind and stuff like that. So it was fun.
Sorry, go ahead.
What's that? And then finishing off, making it to the playoffs. Unfortunately, we came up a little bit short. But then getting a chance to get back into back home in Florida and the groove of things with our little kids. So
yeah. And I mean, you took over, you're a newer hitting coach. I mean, you took over a team that hit a record number of homers. I'm sure you hear that all the time, right? So what was it like for you coming and being the new guy, after seeing the success of the team from the previous year?
It was a pleasure to be a part of that. The obviously special group of players, special group of hitters. First thing was, don't come in and mess them up.
Right.
Be who they are.
Yeah.
But on a serious note, I think that was a big thing for me, was to learn from what they did, the year prior. Obviously they set the records, set many records a year prior. And me coming in is just stepping in and how can I continue to serve and help them and prepare for their season. So being along Rudy Hernandez, who's also the other hitting coach there. He was a pleasure to work with and be around and learn from him as well.
Okay, well, that's awesome. And yeah, I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it when you get there. Mm-hmm. I wanted to go back to your upbringing a little bit. So I saw you were from San Gabriel out here in Los Angeles, and went to San Gabriel High School and played baseball there as well. When did you really commit to baseball, and was it always a passion for you growing up?
It was always a passion. There was always a love for the game. ever since I could remember, to be honest with you. 2, 3, 4 years old. My mom of course, moms, right? They'll show you the pictures of back then, but having older siblings and them at that time being in high school ball and stuff like that, and me being around it, I gathered an interest and a love for the game since I was a little kid. So yeah, I grew up in San Gabriel, Rosemead area. Um, Ended up moving out with my parents. They moved out to out towards Riverside County,
Okay.
Inland Empire area, small little city called San Jacinto.
Oh yeah.
I played out there I think we moved when I was about 11 or so, 11 or 12. Ended up playing for a couple high schools over there once I got to the high school, level. And then when I had a chance to go back, made a big decision when I was a junior in high school to go back to the Valley, to San Gabriel Valley, with a couple coaches that ironically, a couple coaches that played with my older brothers in high school.
Oh wow.
Now they were now coaching in high school at San Gabriel.
Okay.
And I felt like for myself to continue to get better, I needed to play against better competition and stuff like that. So having a chance to go back and play for them, who kind of took me under their wings and developed me as a person and as a man back then, it was cool to do that. So tough to move away from my parents, at a young age. 15, I think I was 15 when I went back, but I had good people around me, so it was good.
And you ended up getting drafted by Detroit out of high school, but you chose to go to college. I mean, obviously it was a little later in the draft, but was that a decision at all for you to go to sign, or you were dead set on going to college?
It was always, as you know, the dream to play professional baseball, especially my upbringing. You think of, that's the chance I'm going to get. Potentially, that's the only chance. Who knows? But again, as I mentioned before, surrounding myself with good people. The coaches that I had in high school, they also had played pro ball, and they kind of guided me through the process. And I also had, at the time, I was living with my brother-in-law and my sister, and my brother-in-law had played basketball at the University of Redlands.
Okay.
So education was kind of, the important conversation of, do you go or do you want to start your education and make sure we have, some sort of backing if baseball doesn't pan out, what I mean? So I had good voices, had experience already from the high school coaches that I had. What round obviously mattered, what round I went in. I was a draft back then. They had draft and follow.
Oh, right.
Draft, and do you want to go or we'll follow you for the next year, blah, 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 blah. So, the decision for me was at that point was fairly easy because of their voices. I heard them and ended up going to LA City College.
Okay. So I didn't know that. I thought you went straight to Long Beach State, but, did you have any other offers besides LA City?
Yes. I had a lot of friends who went to East Los Angeles Community College, ELAC. So most of the teammates that we were graduating class, a lot of them went to ELAC. And they were going to have a powerhouse team, no doubt, good players. But I chose to go to LA City because of, again, I saw an opportunity to not only continue with my education, but I saw a tie to the coaching staff that was there that had ties to Long Beach State and other colleges as well. And his name was Steve Rousey. He was actually a coach for Long Beach, a pitching coach in the early 90s.
Okay.
At State, early College World Series clubs.
Nice.
And so he was the head coach at LA City. And when he saw me play for I was drafted by the Tigers, and they would have those scout teams or whatever that you play at a random field. And he was there. They ironically play at the same field. And he saw me play, and he was like, hey, it's third base is a position that you play. It's open. It's going to be a competition. That's another thing that I liked. It wasn't like, here you go, here's your position. It was more so like, you can compete for this position. I like that. So again, education wise, it was a stepping stone to go to Long Beach State.
And then once you got there, you had a few years there. Obviously, Dave Snell and Mike Weathers are there, big name coaches. And Weathers coached me as well a few years later. What was it like for you being, they're called the Dirtbags? What was it like for you to be a Dirtbag there and play at Blair Field and, move from LA City? Now you're in Division I baseball and a different experience for you.
No doubt, man. First off, it was an honor to wear that uniform. A lot of fundamental values, again, not only through my high school ranks with the coaches that I had, but a lot of foundational principles were laid with the experiences of Dave Snow and Mike Weathers as well, Coach Weather, the weatherman.
Yeah.
And so those were awesome. I got a chance to the opportunity to play with a lot of good players, a lot of guys that went on to the big leagues and made an impact at the big league level, which was, I mean, you can't ask for anything else than that, even
right.
though my senior year was cut short due to an injury.
Okay.
It was still a pleasure to see those guys compete. I had I don't remember a few. I didn't have too many at bats, but due to a broken hand early on. So, but getting a chance to play with Jeremy Reed, Weaver, Abe Alvarez, who I think you've had on as well. Those guys were all in that club, and it was cool to be a part of that.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of, All Americans. You had Tulowitzki, I think, was young when you maybe
he was right
there.
after. He was right after. Yeah, he was right after me. So as you know, when you play there and you're in the pro ranks and you go back and work out, and here's a young Troy Tulowitzki and a young Evan Longoria coming in, you're like, okay, this is what like.
Yeah. No,
I'm in the pro ranks and they're in college. I'm like, I got to get better because he's legit.
Exactly. Well, you got drafted again in 2002 by the White Sox. What do you remember about draft day, and then also like your first few years in pro ball? What was that like for you transitioning from college?
It was great, man. Grateful again for the opportunity. As I just mentioned, my senior year, very stressful year because of the injury that I had.
Yeah.
Didn't get to play too much, but I was grateful for Don Barbara, and I think his McDonald was his last name. He was a scout for the White Sox. I believe he was just starting with the White Sox, and they both had, took me under the wing and gave me an opportunity to sign with the White Sox. Going into pro ball, I mean, it was all that you ever wanted it to be for me. Like, it's baseball 24/7, get to the park. Here's your job. And it was really fun for me, getting a chance to see different cultures. Myself coming from a Mexican background, Mexican parents, had a chance to play with a few Mexican players, and then obviously some guys. My roommate was from Puerto Rico.
Okay.
Really cool. So that was an experience in itself. And then to win it in your first year, we won the championship in my first year of pro ball, which was.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Under our manager was Nick Leyva, who had past managerial and big league. He was a third base coach as well. Played many roles at the big league level, and he took us under his wing development wise. And again, surrounding myself around great people, it's been a blessing for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, I saw your early numbers, like they were pretty good. Obviously, like switching from, metal bats to wood bats wasn't a tough deal for you. So obviously you hit well there, which is cool.
I did hit well. I was a cheater. I swung early.
Okay. Just pull that front hip a little bit.
I didn't let guys like yourself get me deep in counts.
That's smart, man. Sometimes the first one's the best one.
That's right. You gotta stay aggressive in the zone, and I was all over them.
Well, you spent a few years, between low A and high A and eventually independent ball. At what point did you know you wanted to become a coach? Like how much was that a thought for you during your career, and then maybe toward the end? When did that like solidify for you?
So I did play independent ball, and then I had a chance to out of independent ball, I did really well. And I got picked up actually during midseason of that independent league by the Marlins. I had a chance to re-sign with them. So I finished the season with them, and then went back to spring training with them. And that's where I got released at a spring training with the Marlins.
Okay.
At that time, I was going to go and play independent ball again continue to play and then make a decision after the year. But at that point, at that particular time, I had another good friend of mine who got a chance to manage in an independent league. This was 2007, I believe it was. And his hitting coach, who's another good friend of mine, he went through some personal situation where he was not going to be able to become his hitting coach. So he straight up asked me, he goes, "Hey, you want to start and give this a crack, like start coaching?" And I said, at that time I kind of sat down and is like, if I'm going to go this route, this is going to be the route that I go, and I'm going to hang them up. And so having a educational background, that's what I went to Long Beach for, is to become a teacher, a PE teacher. So I said, should be teaching PE on a baseball field.
Yeah.
What should be. So anyway, he gave me the opportunity. I went and coached, and it was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because it really put me in position to see what I wanted to do and see what I was going to be good at, which is, helping people, helping guys get better. Obviously, it was early in my career. I was still learning a lot, the inside out of teaching and how to connect with people. I think that's always been a big strength of mine, is to connect with any and all people. The importance of that. So just learning the teaching skills and how to get across to certain people, English and Spanish. And then the following year, after that year, I was going to go back and I was going to substitute teach. And I got a call from Pittsburgh, from another coach of ours who was at Long Beach State. His name was Troy Buckley.
Oh, yeah.
He became the pitching coordinator for the Pirates. And at that time, the Pirates were overturning they were hiring some new coaches and stuff like that, and fit the bill. He put my name in. I ended up interviewing for the GCL hitting coach position, and ended up being there for 10 years with Pittsburgh.
That's crazy. And yeah, well, I want to get to that too. But your first year in 08, you're the Gulf Coast League GCL coach. And I mean, it's hot. It's Florida. It's a summertime. You got a bunch of young kids. You got Latin kids coming over. What was that like first? Like, how did it hit you pretty hard? Like, damn, this is going to be a long road. Or what was it like the first year?
I never thought of it that way.
Okay.
I thought of it. It was a tremendous opportunity. I again, surrounded with great people. I was with a coach, which I think you might have met before when you were there, Woody Heike, who had been Pirates for 40 plus years. And he managed the GCL for 30 of them, or maybe all 40, I think. So you talk about, if I'm going to complain of it being hot and all this guy has done this his whole life. So I never looked at it that way. I always looked at it as an opportunity of growth, especially being around guys like that. And when you have young players that are eager and they love the game and they want to play, it made my job, for not to say easy, but it made it a pleasure to wake up in the morning. And I didn't call it work. I got a chance to go help, and help and try to make a difference in some of these young ball players' lives. So that was really, really cool to be around that environment.
That's awesome. That's a great perspective. Totally. I mean, you're a young coach, and you do have to, usually earn your way up the minors to become where you are now. But it's good that you viewed it that way. That's pretty cool. For those that don't know about Pirate City, which is the minor league kind of facility and dorms in Bradenton, Florida, what can you how would you describe the vibe down there in Bradenton?
Again, you could look at it. You would hear it from certain perspectives, as you probably did, and then as, when you first go in, and you're like, when I played, I wish I had this. I wish I had all this. Meals 3 times a day. I got whatever you need, you have there. On the other side, yes, when you're young there and you go in there, they did have certain rules where. You had to be. It was all basically to help the player in getting him prepared for his career and his season. But I think some of those things, the gates closed at a certain time. You better be in those gates at a certain time. know, your keys, when you get into your rooms, you got to make sure you're in your rooms and stuff like that. I think when you heard some of the players talk about that kind of stuff, it was like I don't want to say complaining, but it was more so, hey, let us be free, and let us continue to develop and take ownership.
Right.
Whole goal of that was to have ownership in your careers and learn, hey, when you get out into the real world, especially during spring training, you know how spring training, how hectic it is, and
Yeah.
you're on your feet all day and taking care of your bodies, and whatnot. For me, Pirate City was that on the coaching side of it was more so like, man, this is really cool. We have the entire facility that for these guys to prepare and develop and get better. On the other side, sometimes, maybe a little bit more leisure time for players where you open up the gates here and there and stuff. I think would have been beneficial. But at the same time, I see both perspectives.
Yeah, totally.
As what do you see?
Well, I think I was with 3 different organizations, so I got to see the different ways that places are ran. And now that you're with a different organization, I'm sure you have okay, this is how the Twins do it, and this is how the Pirates do it. It's just the way they were it was a little restrictive. And I was never like a guy that would go out all the time. Like I was, followed the rules and everything. But I think for some guys, it was a little stressful just because it was a little restrictive. It seemed like there was a big gap between the big league guys and the minor league guys, where some organizations, you can wear your pants down all the way through the minors. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a little more be yourself, but yeah, it depends on how the organization views what's the best position to get these guys to get better.
And some of those details, that maybe weren't explained at times, like the pants down or pants up.
Right. Or no facial hair or something.
Yeah. There was like ownership at the beginning before you got there as well.
Yeah.
Like, hey, here's what you can do. Now, being a young guy before I was a coach, you have your individuality and stuff like that. Well, I want to see how far I can pull this and see what matters. At the end of the day, that stuff, as you know now, those things that you battle with, they don't really matter. It's you're still allowed to be yourself and continue to compete, and we're going to be here for you.
Right.
Does it really matter if I had my pants up back 15 years ago? Like, you know what I mean?
So looking at it now, no, for sure. You're right on that.
You could see both sides of it. And I think it was more so, when you have those types of situations, it's the growth of the player. What are we going to continue to handle? And at the end of the day, it's, when you take ownership of it, you be yourself, and that's what's going to make you the best player you can be.
Right. And so the first time I got to meet you was back in 2009 when I got traded over to Pittsburgh from Seattle, and we met in West Virginia, beautiful Charleston, West Virginia.
Beautiful Charleston,
yeah.
West Virginia.
And that was, I believe, your first full season, right?
It was, yes.
Okay. And I remember we had guys like Robbie Grossman, who's still playing in the big leagues. We had Starling Marte, who became a star outfielder for the Pirates. What do you remember about your first full season, and maybe some of the guys that were there, and just the whole the Charleston, West Virginia side of things?
You know what? Again, that was on the coaching side. That was my first full season as a coach. The ups and downs, the youth. We had some guys that were younger guys, like Robbie Grossman. We had a few other younger guys. We had a couple guys that were college guys, like I think it was. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Chase Darno was on that. Is that right?
I think so.
I think it was 2009.
Yeah.
He out of college as well, so you see the blend of having guys that are younger guys that are getting into a full season and see how they handle certain things, and then you have college guys who have been somewhat of a decently long season in comparison to high school players, and how they deal with the everyday grind and all that. I mean, that was my first perspective as a coach. On the other side, as a player, I lived it, but then being as a coach and being there for players on the daily was extremely important.
Yeah.
It's a tough game, man. It's tough. It's a hard thing to do is hit. And then when you got, facing guys like 6'10" down, you're off the dirt, releasing already.
There you go.
So,
I had to use I'd use my height to my advantage. Yeah.
And not forgetting about those things, I think, is extremely important. You know,
Right.
I think one other major thing I realized that year, first time away from Pirate City as well for a lot of our players, just the off the field situation. You know, what are our guys living through? Making sure guys are eating. If we had Latin players like starting Marte,
Yeah.
how are they when we go on the road? Like, are they ordering food? So I mean, I wanted to make sure that I was connected with our, especially more so on our hitters than our pitchers.
Yeah.
But just making sure like the off the field stuff is that they're still human beings, and they're trying to fulfill their dreams, you know, as a baseball player.
Yeah.
I think that was extremely important, something that was eye opening for me that first year.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of dealing with or working with Latin players, you became eventually, after a few years of more coaching, the Pirates Latin American hitting coordinator. What was what did that job entail? I didn't even know that job, what that was.
It's basically the assistant hitting coordinator,
For the
and what
whole minor leagues?
the
Or,
minor leagues.
oh, wow.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So, and what it was I traveled from High A, which was, like I mentioned before, I lived in Bradenton. So I traveled from High A, which was there in Bradenton. I oversaw them, and then I traveled to the Dominican. I think I made a total of maybe 8 or 9 trips to the DR, to oversee the offensive program, and not only that, you know, that's where I got, after managing for a couple of years, that I got a sense of helping out with some staff members, newly hired staff members, and stuff like that, which was really cool.
Nice. Well, I mean, right after that, you got a big promotion to go from, you know, one of the assistant coordinators to the minor league coordinator for the Twins. So you're changing organizations. You're the top guy in the minor leagues. What was that whole transition like for you?
It was great, man. Again, it was all those hats that I had with Pittsburgh. I think really allowed me to, it prepared me for the opportunity with the Twins. More foundational principles put in place. Being able to be with the Twins and come in as with the vision that they had from the top. It was a tremendous opportunity for me, and I'm grateful for the opportunity that they gave me to come and lead, and help and develop not only players, but help develop staff as well. The same thing that people did for me throughout my career with Pittsburgh is all those people that I remember, that I still have communication with and I still talk to and help grow me. I continue to try to do the same with a lot of the staff members that we have and the dreams that they have, you know, because I continue to dream, and I want to help them continue to dream as well.
And before we get back to the Twins, so I remember Tom Prince. He was the catching coordinator, and I saw you mentioned him in one of your interviews. And also, I had Bernie Holiday on, the mental strength coach for the Pirates, a few episodes ago. And I saw that you worked with, and I guess Tom Prince was one of the ones that told you to hunt the good stuff. That was something you try to do a lot, and I saw you talked about that. So, what do you mean by that, and how do you approach that with the players?
Yeah, so I want to say it was more so from Bernie Holiday, that comment. And Tom Prince he's a big time mentor of mine, along with Woody Heike, with GCL as the manager. So he kind of took me under his wing some in that first year, and then he also he had some time as a field coordinator as well when I was managing with Pittsburgh. So he led me in that direction. I'm grateful for his friendship. We're still in communication today. But going back to your initial hunt the good stuff, that's something that Bernie Holiday and the mental skills program there brought along with Pittsburgh. And it's a simple phrase to where hunt the good stuff means in a world and in a sport where you fail quite often, there's always something good that comes out of it. That's how I interpret it for myself. So when I try to hunt the good stuff, whether it's with coaching staffs or players, when we focus on, hey, you know, a simple example, we're 0 for 3, especially a young player, 0 for 3, they go right to the result, you know, the result based, and they haven't noticed that they did some good things in those 3 at bats. For me, it's what are we observing? What are we looking for in those 3 at bats that we can review with that player and see if we can do that within, and this is within a game, see if we can do that within a game. That way we don't throw that last at bat away. You know, they still got one more. How can we revisit those 3 at bats within the game and hunt something good? So we're human beings playing a tough sport. So it's easy for some guys to get in, you know, involved in their own head, and they start to, everything's going wrong and this and that and the other. If we hunt something good, we're still doing something good. So let's think positive and let's flip that script. You know, Clint Hurdle used to say, this is, instead of thinking a game of failure, this is a game of failure. He always said, this is a game of opportunity, that stuck with me too from him, which is true. It's a game within a game. There's always an opportunity to flip the script and turn it around, just like life.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you're definitely right on that. Just because you went 0 for 3, what if you had 3, you know, good swings or 3 hard hit balls? That doesn't mean you're bad all of a sudden and you can't figure it out. It's, you just, you know, whatever. It's, baseball's hard.
And guess what? The game, as you know, the game's always going to come down to you too. So if you're like that and you're stuck in your own head and you've, oh, poor me, poor this, poor that, is not going right. Guess what? In the 9th inning, here comes the tying runs at third base and you're up to bat. And now it's more pressure. Now it's, you know, pressure is good. Pressure is a privilege. You want to be in those situations. But how can you maintain and stay focused and stay with your approach and the things that you've worked on all day, that you've trained on, and allow them to happen in the game and not put too much pressure on yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I read at the end of 2019, you were doing some yard work, I guess, at your house, and you got a call from Rocco Baldelli. What do you remember about that phone call?
Oh man. Hey, like you said earlier, in Florida, it's hot. It was hot.
It's hot, man.
It was hot. And it was, I was doing some yard work, you know, mowing my yard and making sure it's, you know, there's some details involved in yard work and stuff like that. And I like it a certain way. And, you know, plants got to be looking, you know what I mean? So I was outside and I had my iWatch on. So then it started ringing and I'm like, no, that says Rocco Baldelli. Okay. And I think I should answer this. So I ended up answering the phone and it was him. And he basically mentioned to me, he goes, I would like to have you as part of my staff the following year. Or, you know, it was in December and it was still hot in December in Florida.
Yeah.
So we spent Christmas on the beach in Florida. So it was hot. And I remember him telling me that, and I said, don't be messing with me, you know, don't mess around. And he goes, I'm not, like, I want you on the staff. He goes, don't do that. As I'm going and I'm talking to him, right, and continuing the conversation, I could hear, I could hear in the background, his fiance was like kind of laughing a little bit, like, because she thought I was messing around. And at that time, my wife comes out of the garage. I had the garage doors open. My wife comes out and I'm mowing the yard. My daughter's sleeping. She goes, turn off the thing because you're going to wait. You woke her up. She was mad at me. And I'm like, on the phone, I'm like this. She goes, what? She goes, I said, it's Rocco. She goes, what? Rocco. And I go like this. And she goes, oh my God. You know, so the emotions start to flow because, again, like I said, you dream big, and at that moment it became real. The blessings, the ability to be around good people my whole career, the dream of, you know, coming from, you know, first generation Mexican here, born in the United States, just all the hard work, going to all those high schools that I went to and making the decision to go, you know, here and move away from my parents. Like, everything came into motion when I was mowing the yard and I got that call, you know, so it was real. It was an emotional moment. And it was cool, man. It was really cool. And Rocco made it feel that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, you definitely put your time in. I mean, 10 years with one organization and 2 more on, you know, the minor league side with the Twins before. I mean, You weren't handed anything. That's awesome, man. So congrats. I didn't get to tell you that before, but
Well,
congrats
I
on that.
appreciate that. And you know, it's something I trying to instill in my kids now. It's like in a world where, there's a lot of bright people out there and it happens fast for a lot of people. But in a world of instant gratification, and if people certainly they don't get something they want immediately, it's like they switch or they go to something else. And to dream big and continue to work and have trust and faith in a lot of people and surround yourself that with people that are going to make you better. There was definitely a point in time for me that I thought of, you know what, is this for me, or do I want to, switch it up or whatnot? But then you surround yourself around good people, and it's like, this is the dream. I'm going to continue to work, and yeah, I'm here now, but it's continuous still. We're still growing. We're still getting better. The game continues to evolve. The game is the game, but it continues to evolve, and we got to continue to evolve with it.
Definitely. I want to get into something that probably a lot of just fans don't really understand. Can you explain the difference between a minor league hitter and a major league hitter, and what do you think separates the big league hitters from the guys that are still trying to make it, or they're missing something? What do you think it is? If it's a few things, what do you think those are?
Well, one thing I noticed that major league hitters are real confident in themselves, and they're consistent in what they do day in and day out. Um, they can handle. You work around. I had a chance to be around some really good players this past year, and you go around them and their daily work and their consistency. Whether they have a good day or whether they have a bad day, their ability to bounce back and come back and believe in themselves, their confidence is through the roof. It's at the end of the day, yeah, you can have your confidence through the roof. And obviously, yes, they're talented like no other. They're the best in the world, no doubt. But those that are most consistent and they do it on a daily basis, those are the guys that stick around and they're here for a long time. The Nelson Cruzes, these Josh Donaldsons, those types of guys. There's no mistake in that. They're confident in their abilities, but also they're the same guy every day. They're consistent with their work, whether it's in the training room, whether it's this, whether it's that. These guys work really hard. It doesn't happen just overnight.
Yeah. And even what I noticed when guys would come down from the big league level and like in the minors and stuff like that and do rehab starts, just like their plate discipline, and they don't get fooled. I mean, obviously they're going to, but not too much, right? And they're tougher outs, and they don't get themselves out that often, at least the premier hitters. So that's another thing I noticed is just their plate discipline and just their ability to handle the strike zone. They know it really well from what I saw.
No doubt. And I think that has to do with confidence as well. Like when obviously that they're talented, their vision, everything's like their strength. I mean, you name it. There's minor leaguers that are just as strong, as some of these big time names. But when you talk about the consistency and all the work that they do, the reason why they're there for that long, their ability to adapt. They're going to face certain pitchers, their ability to prepare for a certain pitcher that they already know. There's a number of things that they do really well.
Yeah. I want to ask you about. I just was looking through kind of the people in the front office or like special assistants for the Twins, and you got guys like Torrey Hunter, who's a legend there, Michael Kadire, Justin Morneau. How much do those guys come around, and how do they, if so, do they help your young guys? And what's it like having some big name Twins, around the program?
So during spring training, they're all in town. They're there with us. Obviously, this year has been a little bit different with COVID and restrictions and protocols that were in place. But accessibility, they're tremendous. They're a phone call away. Michael Kadire is a phone call away. Morneau's he's reporting now with I believe is Fox Sports. So he's there. He's accessible. Torrey Hunter's accessible. We had the privilege of having LaTroy Hawkins was with us this whole year up there as part of the group. So, just picking their brains, they've done it before. They have the history with the organization. Just easy guys to talk to, ask questions about. Tremendous. They're there in spring training. Rod Carew was there, Tony Oliva was there. I mean, these guys are there. It's good to ask these guys questions. Again, with the season being different with protocols and all that, most of them weren't allowed to be in, the dugouts and the clubhouse and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Accessibility, they shared their numbers, call whenever if you have any questions. So I think it's an honor and a pleasure to have those guys around, guys that did it, and they did it at a high level for many years.
Yeah, definitely. It's awesome to have that they're able to do that for you and be that accessible, which is awesome. What are any, I just wanted to ask you just randomly about some cool big league moments. Have you had any of those, or like you're in the show now, or, any of those just different stadiums, anything that sticks out in the last couple of years?
I think it was kind of cool being with Pittsburgh for 10 years. And then we ended up playing in Pittsburgh this past year. So being in the other dugout was kind of cool. It was like an aha moment, so to speak. It's like, wow, I'm here now, but I'm with another team,
Yeah.
with the organization. And it was kind of cool because you walk into the cafeteria where they had us set up for with the protocols and stuff. But you're passing by players I had in the minor leagues that made it to the big leagues. The Jacob Stallings, the catcher, with Pittsburgh. I saw some pictures. You saw Cole Tucker was there, and you just see you're running by these guys, and you're proud of them you saw them as as kids, and they were going in the dreaming big in the minor leagues, and now you see them up there making an impact for their club. Staff members that you ran around with doing a bunch of stuff together, whether it's clubhouse personnel, travel personnel, that kind of stuff. It was really cool to see them as crossing paths and stuff like that. So I think that was a memorable moment this year. On the flip side of that, their manager, Derek Shelton, was our bench coach. So having a relationship with him, with the Twins, and then he goes, it's like we switched. So still having a relationship with him and seeing him across the way, really, really cool. Another guy that impacted myself when I first came over to the Twins.
Gotcha. That is interesting that you're now in different positions, but you're both still in the big leagues, which is cool. So that's really good.
Yeah, it's cool.
What about as far as stadium wise? Anything that kind of blew you away playing at certain stadiums? Did you get a feeling like that at all? I know there's no fans right now, but maybe the year before.
See, the year before I only met the club when I was the coordinator. I only went up for one trip, or actually a couple trips. I went and saw him in Chicago, and then I think I saw him in Texas, I believe, or something like that. So I made a couple trips with them. But this year, just different with no fans. It was definitely I can't say it was a definite shocker for me, because I don't know what it is to go in and day out with packed cathedrals. I don't know what it's like. But being there and just, I remember the first day we got to Minnesota, I just stood out and sat on the concrete blocks behind home plate and just looked at the stadium and just in awe of this is real, this is special. And then I ended up walking around the outfield, with my phone and FaceTime with my kids so they can see the stadium. So that was a pretty cool moment as well. To be in that, it was a real moment. Us being we got concentrated to the Central. So we didn't get to travel. We were originally, which I was looking forward to, we were originally scheduled to play interleague play with the National League West.
Oh.
So being from LA, we were going to play the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. I've never been, I remember as a young kid sitting in the, nosebleeds, because that's what we could afford back then. And we would go watch Dodger games from out there. So that was going to be a special moment that I was looking forward to be able to be on that field for the first time in my life, pretty much. But
hopefully you'll be able to
sometime.
Yeah.
It'll happen sometime.
Yeah, definitely. And actually reminded me to ask you, most of the coaches that I have on, I ask them about analytics and how it really affects or you apply those nowadays. And I'm not, coming from, anybody that's older than me and our generation, we didn't grow up with that stuff. So what's it like now and how do you implement that with big league hitters and, can they listen to it and what's it like with analytics now?
So I having an idea of what the analytics are for me is important. Is being around with other people that know them really well as well. I think the most important part is understanding the player, individual players, and understanding what they want. I've seen it happen where you just give a boatload of information to everybody, and it's like you almost confuse guys more than you want to.
Right.
I think it's the job. It's our job. It's a tool. It's how do we use that tool and for who? How do you translate it? How do you translate it for that specific person? And we have some guys that are really bright and they want the information and they understand the information too. So understanding what they're looking for and being able to connect with them with that information, I think is important. But I think you just have to be aware of who your audience is and how you're gonna send that information to them, because I think that's if not the most important thing that you want to do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Not everybody needs it. Some guys are just all right. See ball, hit ball. That's good enough for me. So
you almost mess them up.
Yeah,
you almost mess them up more if you give them more.
Yeah.
The human element of the game is the biggest analytical number that you want. And those are just tools. They're tools to give us some more information and solidify some of the thoughts that we're looking at.
Yeah. Last thing, just thoughts on 2021 and what, how excited you are for the upcoming season, and hopefully things get a little easier with COVID and stuff. But what's your outlook for this 21 season?
Excited, man. Excited to get back at it. Just starting up here in Florida with a couple of the Florida residents and rehab guys that we have here. You feel the atmosphere already getting going. Having a shorter season last year, it was 60 games, and being able to get back and potentially playing a full 162 should be exciting with the good group of guys that we got coming back. So I'm excited. I'm excited to continue to learn from these guys and make another push to get to that World Series.
There you go, man. Well, you got a lot of talent, so hopefully the Twins can get there one of these days and win a playoff game.
Yeah, man.
Or a playoff series.
Let's go.
Well, Edgar, thank you.
It was a game.
Yeah, for sure. No, I wish you got one of my good buddies is a huge Twins fan, so I'm telling him like, hey, I'm gonna have Edgar on. He's the man. So thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Really happy for you and all that, and I wish you a lot of success this year. So and hopefully I can track you down the road and we'll do it again.
I appreciate you, big fella. Thank you so much for having me, and God bless, man.
You too. My thanks to Edgar Varela. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode and wish him all the best with his newer gig with the Minnesota Twins as the hitting coach. So my thanks to Edgar. You can follow the show at Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at Too Tall Sports. You can find us on YouTube. Please subscribe and hit the bell notification so you can see every time an episode is dropped. We try to drop one every Thursday. So please check that out. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please scroll down on the episodes page and find those 5 stars. Go ahead and hit that for me. That'd be a big help. And if you'd like to leave a review, that would also help as well. You can find the show on Spotify if you'd like. We're on Pandora now, and we're also on Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, wherever you get it, we're there. Once again, if you want to email the show, you can email me at tootallsportspodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week for another great episode. Have a good one.